Welcome to Scrollin', a podcast about the Elder Scrolls Online. I'm Ket.
I'm Davius.
And this is episode number 23. Not a lot of announcements this week, but one really big one. Davius is back. Davius, welcome back, bud.
Proud to be back.
We had a bunch of angry listeners writing in. We want Davius back. But I did my best to
I heard that the Nord content was a little lacking. That's the only thing I heard.
We were a little light on Nord talk last week. Yeah. That's pretty much all the announcements. So let's just move right on and talk about the gold vendor. So this week is a little bit different. I'll just go through the list here. We have Mighty Glacier, Mighty Glacier Ring, Amberplasm Ring, Ring of the Trainee, and that comes in all three traits: robust, arcane, or healthy. Ring of Soulshine. I never know how to pronounce this one. Sentinel of Rekugams, RKUGAMZ apostrophe S.
I think you nailed it. That's exactly.
That's a helmet, and then Narayaneth's helm as well. Obviously, the most interesting one there is going to be Amberplasm. That was actually on the gold vendor not that long ago as well. So this is a kind of a repeat. It's totally random, so you get repeats sometimes. Amberplasm is an amazing set. It was buffed recently. Magicka damage set, and the 5-piece gives you 276 Magicka, stamina, and health recovery. It was just given that health recovery recently. Really, really nice set for PvP.
Yeah, that's pretty fantastic.
And the trainee, now, right now, on the live version of the game, trainee isn't really the most interesting set, but we're going to talk about this set in this episode. It's getting reworked, and I think it's actually going to be a very, very interesting set here pretty soon. So it might be a good idea to invest in a couple of these rings, because I think players are going to find a lot of different ways to work this trainee set into their builds here pretty soon. Okay, so get comfortable, Davius. Stretch. This is going to be a long discussion.
We called this though. A couple weeks ago we said that this was going to be the big one.
It's the big one. It really is. The last couple of episodes have been pretty short, just because of what's been going on. But man, this was going to be a big one. There's a lot of just general news happening. Plus, there's a new PTS cycle that just started this week, and a lot of just new stuff to dive into. So the patch note, the PTS patch note stuff is probably going to be the big chunk of the conversation we have today. But we do have a few press releases to go over first. So let's just knock those out really quick. So for one, we're having a Summerset celebration event. It's the anniversary of Summerset. So it's going to be running July 23rd through August 4th. And there will be a link in the description if you want to read the article to see more info. But basically, you're just going to be able to receive bonus loot from the daily quest rewards and resource nodes. Any bosses that you beat in the zone, and any Psijic portals that you loot, but only the ones in Summerset. Any of those things that you do, you're just going to be getting additional extra loot from all of that stuff. And of course, it's an event, so if you are looking for opportunities to expand your Indrik collection, here it is. Yet another Indrik on the horizon. Hooray, hooray.
I know you're excited about that one.
Can't get enough Indriks. Just kidding. I don't have a single Indrik. I think they're ugly. I don't like them. I really wish they would get on to something else with these events, like some other kind of mount or some different thing to work towards, because I'm sick of the Indrik thing, man.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of that mount either. And it's really a bummer because they have 30 different versions of it. So
they're really
if you do like it, it's fantastic. If you don't, it's a bummer.
I remember when the Summerset expansion dropped, and there were these Indrik like monsters out in the world that you could fight. And I remember seeing someone on a forum discussion say, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had Indriks as mounts?" And boy, if they
Find
only
that person
knew,
now. Find him now.
What have you done? And I guess probably the most notable thing about the Summerset anniversary event is that during the event, the Summerset expansion is 50% off, which I think is very much worth the price. This is, I think, probably my favorite expansion of any of them that have come out. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous zone, a really cool story. You get access to the Sigic Order and jewelry crafting, also the Cloud Rest Trial if you're interested in that. Very much worth checking out if you haven't done it already.
I'm plugging my EP ears as I hear you say
My roots are in the Aldemari Dominion. Originally, I defected and went over to the Ebonheart Pact, but part of me still is loyal to the Queen.
It is a fantastic expansion. I will say that.
We got another Meet the Character article, and the character that we're meeting is one of the new dungeon bosses. It's Lady Thorn, and the article is written from the perspective of our old friend Fenorian, who we did a Meet the Character for him a little while ago, and he was also an NPC that we traveled around with during the Greymore quests. So he's, the thing's written from his perspective, and he's talking about Lady Thorn. It's a pretty long write-up, and if you're, into lore and stuff like that, it's a really, really good read. They always do a good job on these things. And the last press release here, there is a free player appreciation Crown Store bundle right now. So you can log in right now into the game, and if you go to the Crown Store, it'll be like the main featured item that you see. It's just a bundle of some random stuff that's just free for all players. I don't even think you have to be a ESO Plus member or anything like that. So you get a non-combat pet, a new like mace outfit style. You get 3 outfit change tokens, which is pretty cool. Davius, I bet you'll use those up pretty quick, right?
Oh yeah, within one day.
This guy changes his outfits a lot. 10 crown repair kits. I think people maybe are sleeping on these crown repair kits, man. These things are amazing. Just double click a repair kit, it instantly repairs all of your gear. I can't get enough of those things.
Love crown repair kits.
Yeah. And you get some soul gems and some experience scrolls as well. All right, so now we're going to get on to the patch note discussion. So the public test server went up earlier this week. This is PTS version 6.1.0 for the upcoming Thorn dungeon DLC. So this is a 2 dungeon pack. There's Stone Garden, which is located in Blackreach, and Castle Thorn, which is located in Greymore. They showed off some of these things in a recent live stream and just kind of showed what's going on with these dungeons. They do look pretty cool. There's a new mechanism for activating hard mode, and they say they're going to use this in all dungeons going forward. So instead of reading a scroll, you light a brazier, and it summons a big glowing banner that you can easily see and tell, like, yes, hard mode has been activated. And as long as the fight hasn't started yet, you can toggle it back off. You can go back and forth as much as you please. And then the Stone Garden trial has a hard mode for all 3 main bosses in there. And there's no mention of what you get exactly for doing, multiple hard modes, but I'm guessing at the very least you're going to get additional Undaunted keys and transmute crystals. I'm guessing at the very least.
It's pretty cool. I like that idea.
It is neat. I have to imagine there's going to be some achievements and surely like a cosmetic thing or something for completing all 3 hard modes. There's got to be.
It opens up a lot of possibilities for sure.
Yeah, it's a neat idea. And of course, you get all the usual stuff that you get with the dungeon pack. There's going to be some new crafting motifs, some new achievements and titles to get, collectibles, skins, a bunch of new armor sets, which we'll of course talk about here in just a minute.
I also like the new hard mode activation. I think that's like...
It looks cool.
Well, and it's a really good idea, too, because the scroll, we've all been on dungeons, and as a tank, for most of the dungeons, I usually forget about the scroll sometimes, so more focus to that, I think, is a fantastic idea.
Yeah, that's cool. And I think that it's a nice little visual update and just makes it kind of seem a little bit more modern. I like it. Mm-hmm. Another new feature that we're getting along with this patch, and this is something, even if you don't buy this DLC or even if you're not an ESO Plus member, this is something that you'll have access to, character pathing in housing.
Oh, so boy.
Davius, I know is going to be excited about this. And this is something that you and I have talked about, like we wish they would add this to the game.
Yeah.
So you can create custom paths for your mounts, pets, and assistants to follow in your home. Really, really cool. And there's different types of paths. You can make them go kind of like ping pong back and forth. You can put them on a loop. You can kind of set it to random. And right now on PTS, they said this can change, but for right now, you could set up to 50 nodes or stopping points for them to go to, which is way more than I would have expected.
So much.
There's a bunch of details about how character pathing is going to work. You can check those out in the patch notes. Of course, there'll be a link to those in the description. But it's really cool. We played around with it a little bit on PTS, and it's pretty neat actually. And related to that, we have these new types of NPCs called house guests, and these are just looks like items just in the crown store that you can buy, and it's just a generic NPC that you can put in your house. And I don't think they do anything other than just be there, but you can create these paths for them and stuff. I think there's 3 of them right now, and each of them look different. I think one of them's a Khajiit, and so anyway, just a new way to kind of spice up your house and make it seem like there's actually some life happening there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because this is, like you said, this is exactly what we were talking about. We have the guild hall, put a lot of design and created and everything, and then we've always kind of joked that it looks kind of lifeless. It'd be cool if we could have actual NPC characters walking around and doing things, and it's with both of these, they've kind of added that into the game.
Yeah, like our crafting area that we have in the guild hall. It'll be awesome to just have some NPCs like walking around there, like they're working and stuff. It'll be cool. Okay, time to get into the juicy stuff here. So, of course, with a new DLC, we're getting a bunch of new armor sets. Let's talk about these. Let's start with the sets that we get from the Castle Thorn dungeon. The first one is a light armor set called Talfig's Treachery. So it's a light armor set. You get spell critical, max magicka, and spell damage. And then on the 5-piece, increase your spell damage by 372, but also increases damage taken from flame and fighter's guild abilities by 10%. And so just for a comparison, Julianos gives you 300 spell damage for the 5-piece bonus. So this one's giving you 372, so 72 more in exchange for this penalty of getting an extra 10% flame and fighter's guild damage. It's weird, kind of weird, right?
It is, yeah. It's really unique specifics there. The flame, that kind of works, but the fighter's guild abilities is the one that really throws me off. And 10%, that seems like quite a bit.
So you're gonna be getting hit harder with a Dawnbreaker, really. Mainly,
yeah,
you're gonna be.
I don't want a 10% bonus to get hit with the Dawnbreaker. It hits hard enough.
It seems kind of thematically fitting for a vampire, but I'm not sure it's actually good for a vampire. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of mimicking that kiss curse thing that you get from being a vampire, but I don't know if I were a vampire, I don't know that I would want to wear this.
Well, exactly. And 100%, it seems like this is a design for a vampire, but I don't think any vampire is going to want to double down on the flame damage that they're already taking.
Yeah, when I can just wear Julianos, I'll sacrifice 72 spell damage.
It 70. It just seems so small.
Yeah, it's a weird set. I don't know if I see that one being a super popular set. It's just the first week of PTS, of course, so I'm sure some of these numbers will be adjusted.
Sure.
Keep an eye on that one. But as it is right now, it doesn't seem super interesting.
Yeah, what I'd like to see out of that one is more spell damage. If you give me more spell damage for those negatives, then I might be intrigued.
Maybe bump it up to 400 or so.
Yeah, 400, 450, something like that.
Now this is the one I think that everyone is looking at, myself included. The name, awesome name, Unleashed Terror.
That's got to be the name of like a monster truck somewhere, right?
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah, totally. Unleashed Terror. Such a funny name. It's a medium armor set. You get weapon damage and then 2 lines of maximum stamina. Already I'm a big fan just from those set bonuses alone. And then the 5-piece. Deep breath here. When you deal critical damage with a charge... when you deal direct damage with a charge, leap, teleport, or pull ability, so basically any gap closer, You cut your enemy, causing them to bleed for 19,728 over 5 seconds. And that can happen every 10 seconds per target. A 19,000 bleed over 5 seconds is a lot
So
of damage.
huge. So much damage.
It's a lot of damage. And of course, the first thing that comes to my mind is the Maelstrom Arena two-handed weapon. So when you use that weapon, when you use the two-handed critical charge gap closer, that applies a 10,000 bleed over 5 seconds. So, I imagine we use these two together, right? Critical charge, that's a gap closer, so it's going to proc this Unleash Terror set. Plus you have the Maelstrom two-hander, so you're going to apply a 30k bleed over 5 seconds instantly
That's
as soon
insane.
as you hit them with a gap closer.
That's insane.
Insanity. And I know I'm not the first person to have that. I'm not the only person to have that
Oh,
thought.
sure, yeah.
I mean, so I think that's probably going to be a pretty common build that we're going to see this next patch, and it's probably going to be very, very
Yeah.
nasty. I think about pairing it up with the Blood Drinker set. It's a 5-piece set that increases all of your bleed damage over time abilities by 33%.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what my Stam DK, that's the build. That's the build it's going to be this next
I
patch.
think they call that Unleashed Terror.
Yeah. It's going to be Terror Unleashed for sure.
Yeah, this set's just kind of wild. I mean, when I look at it, obviously, like you said, it's any gap closer, charge, leap, teleport, or pull ability. But there seems like there's so many instances that can matter. The Templar, the charge ability that they have.
Toppling charge, yep.
Toppling charge is already a super popular ability right now, and this is only a buff to that. I know the Necro has a pull ability, but I don't think it deals damage. Does it?
I don't think so. Also, a teleport ability, so a sorcerer's streak, I assume, is going to work.
Oh, wow, yeah. Wow, Stam Sorks.
Mm-hmm. It's so versatile. Like just about every stamina build is going to be able to benefit from this, and it's just going. I feel like the developers at some point got tired of people complaining about the so-called tanky meta, and so they're like, "All right, fine, no more tanky meta. Here's all the damage you could ever possibly need. Have fun."
Oh man, seriously, yeah. This is going to be. I think this is going to probably be one of the more popular sets out there. Up there with like a New Moon Acolyte type level of popularity.
Venomous Smite. Imagine pairing this up with Venomous Smite.
Oh yeah, good night.
There's going to be some outrageous damage combos out there. It's going to be a volatile PvP environment for sure. I mean, it already is. It's just going to be even more.
Yeah, This is going to be an interesting to watch over the next coming weeks to see what tweaks they make to it.
Yeah,
if any.
I have to imagine that 19,000 tooltip has got to come down a little bit, right?
This set could be a Stoons all over again.
It could be. We're getting all hyped week one, and then I've never actually equipped 5 pieces of Stoons Favor. I'm ashamed to say. We're a fraud. No.
We'll just add it in. The Goons Night we unleash terror. So you have to have Stoons and unleash terror.
Those are the two. Gotta have them.
Oh man.
All right. So yeah, that's the one to be looking out for. So let's just move on. This next one is a heavy armor set called Crimson Twilight. Gives you maximum health, 4% healing taken, another maximum health. And then the 5-piece, after taking damage, you surround yourself in an 8-meter mist of blood. After 2 seconds, the mist is violently siphoned into your body, dealing 8220 bleed damage to nearby enemies and healing you for 100% of the damage done. So that could possibly be a huge heal if you're surrounded.
Before we talk about the ability of this, I just want to highlight the mist is violently siphoned into your body.
Violently.
What an interesting. What does that mean?
Like, was that descriptor really necessary?
Exactly. I'm very intrigued by that. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. This could be, this seems like a great tank set.
Yeah, every 8 seconds, it seems like kind of a long cooldown, but I mean, you only need a few enemies around for that to be like a really massive heal. So if you're like kind of bulky, tanky enough to last those 8 seconds, and then you get that health return back. I made a note here. It seems like it would synergize really nicely with the vampire mist form, the morph that heals you, that like damages enemies and heals you while you're
Yeah.
damaging them. It seems like it could kind of pair up nicely with that. You could get kind of a cool result from that.
I'm trying to think of this in a PvP. It's hard to take these tank sets into PvP, but 8
Yeah.
meters is pretty big actually. Most moves like this are in that 4 meter range. So 8 meters, you have a pretty good chance to hit players.
Yeah. And in battlegrounds, I think you could probably get pretty good use out of it. If you can make a build around it that actually works well, I bet you could get something out of it in BGs.
Hmm.
And then the monster set in this dungeon is called Lady Thorn. The one piece gives you max health. The two piece casting an ability that costs health spawns a blood ball for 10 seconds, and there's a 10-second cooldown. And then you or an ally near the blood ball can activate a synergy that deals 5,000 disease damage to nearby enemies. And it also applies Major Maim for 5 seconds. And enemies can only get Major Maim from this set every 30 seconds. So they can get Major Maim from some other source, but not only from this set every 30 seconds. That seems kind of neat. The fact that you can activate your own synergy, it kind of reminds me of that Necromancer Graveyard ability.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. It's not a ton of damage, 5,000 disease damage and 5 seconds of Major Maim. To me, I mean, I'm sure some people are looking at this thinking like that looks pretty good, but I don't know. It doesn't really grab me.
It's weird to me that it's disease damage. It seems very, obviously this is pairing up with the vampire stuff, so it
Yeah.
seems odd to me that it's a disease damage instead of magic damage. Something that lines up with the vampire a little bit more.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, disease doesn't really fit the theme. It doesn't seem. You're right.
We'll probably get to it at some point, but with the changes to vampires, this seems like a vampire ability. I'm pretty closed door on vampires right now, so
Yeah, I think that's how a lot of people are feeling.
it really kind of this whole monster set just kind of makes me not hugely interested. Just not necessarily because the set, but because of what they've done to vampire, which seems what this set would be perfect for.
Yeah, yeah, it seems like it would be. Now, I could see an interesting necromancer, like magic and necromancer build, maybe making use out of this with the whole self synergy thing. But otherwise, I don't know. I just don't think I'm super interested in that monster set.
Hmm.
And so let's move on to Stone Garden. Talk about the sets that we get in there. So we have a light armor set called Elemental Catalyst. So we get Max Magicka, Spell Critical, and Max Magicka. And then whenever you deal Flame, Shock, or Frost damage, you apply a stack of Flame, Shock, or Frost weakness to the enemy for 5 seconds. Each stack of an elemental weakness increases their critical damage taken by 6%, and an enemy can only have one stack of each elemental weakness at a time. That's a lot to take in. So basically, flame shock or frost damage gives them a stack of elemental weakness, and they can only have one stack of each type, but they can have a stack of all three types simultaneously. So,
Hmm.
of course, my first thought is this is a force pulse set, right? The destruction staff ability force pulse. It's a spammable, and
Yep.
every time you hit somebody with it, it deals flame, shock, and frost damage every time.
Yeah.
So you hit somebody once with force pulse, they immediately have the maximum stacks from this set, and so they're taking 18% additional critical damage
Which is
right away.
crazy. Yeah, this one to me immediately screams. You just throw this with, I think, is it Mother Sorrow that increases your spell crit by a
Yeah,
crazy amount?
yeah,
You just throw your crit numbers way up, and then you're going to be getting that extra crit damage.
yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
interested to see how much extra damage that would
I bet it
be an
would be a
output.
ton, especially like if you're a Khajiit Nightblade or Templar with extra crit
Yep.
amplifiers as well.
Yep.
And the way this description for this set reads, I think that enemy is taking additional crit damage from all sources. It doesn't say specifically just from you, so I mean it could
Yeah.
be a significant debuff.
Yeah. Increases their critical damage taken by 6%. Doesn't say it by any specific person.
And the fact that it's just man, just hit them once with force pulse, boom, that's the full proc. You have it right there. That's a
Yeah.
strong
Yeah.
set.
And if you're doing this setup, force pulse is probably going to be, you're spammable, right?
It would have to be. I would assume if you're using this set, you're planning to use Force Pulse with it. I can't imagine there's another simpler way to get
Yeah.
the full benefit out of this.
But that's huge because you're going to be putting this on everybody. Like, in a battleground, your opposing team's just pretty much going to have this critical damage multiplier on them at all times.
Well, yeah, and Force Pulse has a secondary effect where it deals splash damage to anyone who has I think a negative elemental effect on them that's
Oh wow.
nearby. So you can apply this to multiple people potentially.
Yeah.
Um, so that's one to look out for. I think we're probably going to see a number of Magicka builds using that. Seems really strong. The medium armor set from this dungeon is called Kraglin's Howl. Gives you weapon critical, stamina recovery, and weapon damage. And then the 5-piece, after an enemy you've recently damaged dies, you let out a howl, granting 3 allies within 15 meters the Heed of the Call synergy. Activating the synergy gives you and the activator 12 ultimate, and that can happen every 20 seconds. So this is a Wolfpack set.
Oh
right?
yeah. It's got to be.
Uh, I feel like that's exactly what it's made for. I mean, it seems obviously werewolf themed, and whenever someone you've damaged recently dies, you basically give yourself and someone else a bunch of ultimate, so that you can stay in that werewolf form.
Yep. I have my werewolf character ready. It's not built or leveled or anything, but this set is probably going to find its way onto that build.
It seems perfect. Plus, the werewolves have this Call of the Pack passive. For every werewolf in the group, you get a 10% cost reduction for your werewolf ultimate. So if you have that going, plus this set, I mean, you're going to have a pretty easy time staying in that werewolf form.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool. The heavy armor set is called Arcasus's Genius. You get max health, you get a line of armor, and another line of max health. And this one is, I like the simplicity of this set. Whenever you drink a potion, you and 3 group members get 44 ultimate, and that can happen every 30 seconds. Now, I was thinking about this. That 30-second cooldown doesn't matter at all because potions have a 45-second cooldown. So,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, so the 30-second cooldown makes no difference.
I had joked with you earlier in the week of taking that set, the previous set we just talked about, the Kraglin's Howl, and then just pairing it up with this set and just making a set that you just give your teammates ultimate. You're the ultimate generator for them.
That could be cool. Yeah, you're just like this ultimate generating machine for everyone.
Yeah, just feeding ultimate to your team.
That's a cool idea. That's a very Davius idea too. You love ultimate builds.
I love ultimate.
I feel like that's the ultimate Davius build. Like, not only am I giving myself a bunch of ultimate, you're all getting a bunch of ultimate.
Yeah, I'm forcing everybody to be an ultimate build. That's the way. That's the way to go.
Monster set in this dungeon is called Stone Husk. This is a weird one. So the 1-piece gives you a weapon critical, and then the 2-piece, your heavy attacks tether you to two enemies within 10 meters for 5 seconds. And I guess the way that reads is like one heavy attack will tether you to all nearby enemies, is how that seems to me.
Wow,
enemies touching the tether take 1906 physical damage every 1 second. That's a decent amount of damage. And you gain a stack of Husk Drain, up to 15 stacks. So when the tether ends, you consume those stacks and gain 30 weapon damage per stack consumed for 5 seconds. So that's 450 total weapon damage. And then there's a 10-second cooldown. So it could be potentially like a big, like, bursty set if you can utilize it right. It seems kind of like it might be hard to utilize it, though.
Yeah, it sounds like if you can utilize it, it would be fantastic. But my thing with these tether sets is that when you're in a battleground or you're in a PvP area, I guess in PvE it's totally different. PvE is probably not that difficult, but from a PvP stance, it's so difficult to stay within these tether ranges. I don't know if it doesn't really talk about the range or if you break that tether or. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming that if you go outside that 10 meters, that it breaks it.
Yeah, that's what I assume. So, but yeah, that's the thing. Like most players, like you can clearly see that tether, and so you just
Yeah, just run away from it.
step back a little bit and it's over. So I don't know.
From a PVE standpoint, I could see this being really good in PVE.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I could see it being really really good in PvE, like burning down mobs and stuff like that. They do note as well that this set is activated on heavy attacks, not just fully charged heavy attacks. So a medium attack would proc it as well. So something to
Yeah,
keep in
pretty
mind.
pretty easy way to proc it.
Hmm. So it's cool. So yeah, you basically it applies an AOE dot for 5 seconds, and then that expires, and you're trading that dot for a weapon damage buff for 5 seconds, and it just kind of goes back and forth like that. It's interesting. It's again like neither one of these monster sets. I'm not looking at either one of them saying like, "Ooh, I got to get that." It's really there's a
Yeah,
couple of 5 piece sets that are really interesting, but I feel like monster sets in general lately have been not amazing.
that's well, it was the introduction of the mythic items, and then they kind of nerfed a bunch
They
of the monster
nerfed a
sets.
bunch, yeah, and the new ones they've been introducing too. I just haven't been super crazy about.
Yeah, they're not real. They're not real exciting. I mean, like we said, that one you could maybe for a specific build, you could probably work that one to be pretty good. But it's nothing that just screams out, really good.
So that's all of the new armor sets. There's also been a lot of reworks to existing sets. I think just about every armor set in the entire game has been adjusted at this point, or like between the last couple of patches and this patch. I'm not going to mention all of them because it would just take way, way too long. But we're going to pick out some favorites and discuss those a little bit. So just in general, they say that they've adjusted all item sets that have a radius check for friendly targets to no longer target allies, but instead target group members only. And this is a very good step in a very positive direction, and I hope they continue down this path. So it's mostly like support or healing sets that have like a AOE component to them. That AOE heal is only going to be applying to group members, not just any friendly nearby. So just some of the sets that this is going to apply to: Cold Harbor's favorite, Earth Gore, Powerful Assault, Redistributor, Vestment of Olorime, however you pronounce that, Winter's Respite. I notice Heaty's Hearth isn't on the list here, which I think is interesting because I assume that would apply to that one too, but it's not on here. But there's a bunch of others that I'm not mentioning. But just about any set that has an AoE heal to it, it's only going to be hitting group members. This is something that I've heard a lot of people ask, that they would make this apply to healing abilities, like radiating regeneration or something. Make that only apply to group members, and that would probably have a huge impact on like Cyrodiil performance. So
Yeah,
hopefully they're kind of heading in that direction, and maybe we'll see more of this.
that's what I was gonna say. Is this change they've made here seems like the cry from the Cyrodiil players. What it's been, they've been asking for this for a while, but they've been more asking for it on healing ability. So it's interesting that they're starting it off with the sets.
Yeah. So let's go over some of these crafted sets. Again, there's a lot more than what we're just going to mention here. I'm just going to pick out my favorites. I figured we could talk about Cold Harbor's favorite, Davius, since this is one of your favorite sets.
Oh yeah, this is I think this is a huge buff for this set. It's the heal lasts a little bit longer, so it's going from 4 seconds to 6 seconds.
Hmm.
But where it used to be a 12,190 heal, that's getting buffed to 6,254.
Or 16,
Oh yes, yes, I'm
16,254.
sorry,
Yeah.
16,254. Sorry.
16K over 6 seconds rather than 12K over 4 seconds. So it's just being extended 2 seconds basically.
So for 4,000 buff. So this is gonna be it's already a really strong heal, so it's only getting stronger. I use this set uniquely on Davius, my main healer. So I'm excited about this. I think it's just only gonna lead to stronger heals.
Yeah, yeah, or damage if you use it for that as well. This next one I'm actually extremely excited about. Redistributor. This is a crafted healing set that no one has used for a long time just because it's been so weak. But they're buffing it considerably now. So now it procs whenever you overheal anyone rather than just overhealing yourself. That's a big deal. They slightly decreased the healing. It's 2320 instead of 2347, so no big deal there. But then this is a big deal. Decrease the cooldown to 1 second instead of 3 seconds. So the fact that you can proc it by overhealing anybody, plus it only has a 1 second cooldown now, this is a major, major buff to this set. It's also, this is a crafted set. So this is all of a sudden, like overnight, this just became like everyone's first healing set, I imagine. Like
Yeah,
you just made a new character, you want to be a healer, you don't have any good gear right now, craft yourself some redistributor. It's going to be great.
yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think, yeah, this is just, and not only is it just going to be your first healing set you get, but it's going to be a very, it's easy to get, but it's a really, really powerful heal set.
Yeah, it's a really strong heal. I mean, 20 23 20 every 1 second. That's a strong hot.
Yeah.
Also, what I really like about this set is the 2 through 4 piece bonuses just give you max health, max magicka, max stamina, and it's a crafted set, so you can make it in any weight that you want.
Hmm.
And so I think I'm actually going to use this on my stamina warden. I have a stamina warden healer build that I've really been struggling to get the build just right, just the way I want it. And this specific set is one that I've been looking at for a while, like wishing that they would buff it so that I could use it. And now I'm going to. I'm going to put it on that character. He's using powerful assault as well. And a stamina warden has some decent healing capability. I think this is
Oh,
going to be
yeah.
an awesome build, actually. I'm really, really excited about this.
When I read this set, I really like the idea of pairing it with Spell Power Cure.
Yeah, that works because they both proc off of overhealing, so that works
Yep.
really well.
So
Yeah.
so you are actually, as we always say, it's very easy to overheal, but now every single overheal that you're doing is not going to waste. It's actually every overheal you do is getting two benefits. So
Yeah. It would work well with a sorcerer using Power Surge with Radiating Regen. Power Surge gives an AoE heal every time you do a crit heal.
hmm
So just having these multiple layers of healing happening, I think, could work really nicely.
Yep.
Um, Shacklebreaker, honestly, nothing big changing with Shacklebreaker, but the one thing that they are doing is they've reordered the 2 through 4 piece bonuses to better account for bar swapping, and I just wanted to point that out. That's something they do for a few different sets. It seems like they are really trying to encourage like using these mythic items, using arena weapons and things like that, and they're realizing that especially in PvP, it's very very common to have these single bar setups, or even in PvE too. You have a master bow or a maelstrom bow or whatever on the back bar, and then something else on the front bar. And it's a challenge. Certain sets would be good, except when you swap to your back bar, you lose not only the 5 piece bonus but also the 4 piece bonus. And depending on what that 4 piece bonus is, it might not be great to lose say maximum health every time you swap to the back bar or something like that. So
hmm
they're just kind of switching these 2 through 4 piece bonuses around so that you're not losing some important stat whenever you bar swap. I really like that.
Yeah, I just really love how they are just going all in on this unique build setup where it's not just 5-5-2 monster set now.
Yeah,
It's
they're really making it so that you can just be as creative as you want to be and just go for
Yeah.
it.
It is the time for theory crafting right now. It is prime time theory crafting, and it's just so much fun. We joked
Yeah.
this week a lot about how we'd be planning to do something or planning to play, and then an hour and a half or 2 hours go by. We just were theory crafting the whole time.
Yeah, I mean we had our quote unquote goon night last night, right? But we hardly really like did any, like we were mostly like tinkering around with our characters, like in
Yeah.
our inventory, like messing around and stuff
Yeah.
for like hours. This next set, so all right, they made a mistake this week on PTS. They've already acknowledged it. I was like freaking out about this set. Torix Pact. This is already one of my favorite sets. It's a really really strong set. Um, so the 2 piece is now armor rather than spell damage, so it's just going to be a little bit more appealing for stamina builds now rather than mainly magicka builds. They increased the cooldown reduction for enchantments to 33%, up from 30%. So that's a bit of a buff there. And then this is the line that was the mistake. Okay, they said increase the potency of enchantments to 90%, up from 30%. Holy crap! And I think on PTS actually that is what it is, but it's an accident. It's supposed to be 45%. So they've acknowledged that on the forums. A developer chimed in on a forum discussion and said, "Whoops, that's a mistake. It's supposed to be 45%. Still a big buff, up from 30%. Increased potency to your enchantments." If you've never used Torrig's Pactman, it is an incredibly powerful set. It just you use this with infused weapons, and it just juices up those glyphs so much that they end up being your primary source of damage. You can seriously just light attack people to death.
Yep.
Really strong. It's going to be even stronger. I was flipping out about that 90% though, man. That was going to be outrageous.
I read that 90%, and I just immediately was like, oh, that will change. There's no way.
I mean, you're gonna be light attacking people for like 20k. Ridiculous. Mechanical acuity also getting buffed a little bit. They removed the proc chance, so just dealing direct damage guaranteed procs this set. That's really nice. It had like a 15% proc chance before, so that's a huge buff. So we were kind of confused about this, right? So they say that this set now grants its guaranteed critical strike to any ability that can naturally critically strike rather than only attacks. So we're wondering if that means it applies to heals now, right?
Yeah. If it does mean heals, then I think it's huge for this set. But you made a really good point, is that it's the wording they use. It says, naturally critically strike. That doesn't really sound like a heal, but it says rather than only attacks. So I'm confused on what, if it's not a heal, what would not be considered an attack. Really interesting wording there.
Yeah, but I wonder, like, if it applies to heals now, like, why wouldn't they just say it applies to heals now? Like just say it like that.
Right.
But that does seem like, what else could it be? But if that's the case, even if it's not, this set is really nice. It's a really nice buff. The fact that you get the guaranteed proc from direct damage, plus if you get critical healing from it. I mean, 5 straight seconds of 100% critical damage and critical heals, and you can easily control that proc since it's a guaranteed proc now.
Yep.
So you can just gap close to someone. It procs guaranteed, and now you have a 5-second window where you're doing a ton of damage, and you have a whole lot of healing power. And 5 seconds can be a good amount of time in PvP. That can be enough time to make some stuff happen for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's really nice. Once again, they did this. They reordered the sets 2 through 4 piece bonus, which is only even more fantastic because this seems like a prime set for a bar swap opportunity.
Yeah, they kind of optimized those bonuses for bar swapping, and this is a perfect set to have active on only one bar because you want to be able to control that proc. And so we were talking about it earlier, right? Like you could have a setup like you have a master bow on the back bar, so that 5-piece bonus isn't active back there, so you can save it, hit your target with the master bow, swap to the back bar, then do a gap closer. Now your mechanical acuity procs when you're ready to really deliver your combo. So really awesome, man. They're just really dialing these things in so nicely.
Man, as you were saying that, I thought about this set with that new Unleashed Terror, with that critically striking, and I was just like, oh wow.
Yep. That could be. I mean, there's all these combinations. It's going to be an extremely volatile environment. I mean, like I said, it already is. It's just ramping it up more and more, it seems. And like they're really not giving us a ton of defensive options to compensate for all this extra damage being added, right? It's basically just, it seems like we're just being encouraged to be more offensive, more aggressive.
Yep.
Which I don't know. I think I like that. I think I do. So that's all the crafted sets I wanted to talk about. There's more than that were touched on. That's just all I really wanted to talk about on those. Let's talk about some of these overland sets. And we'll start with Armor of the Trainee. And remember, this is on the Gold Vendor this week. And you might want to get in on this because I think this set is being significantly buffed, in my opinion. So this set is now a 3-piece set instead of a 5-piece set. And each piece gives you a bonus. So if you equip 1 piece, you get a 1-piece bonus. If you equip 2 pieces, you get the 1 and 2-piece bonus, and so on. and each piece just gives you a maximum stat. One piece gives you max health, two pieces gives you max magicka, three piece gives you max stamina, and it's 1454 of each
Yeah, a
stat. So
lot of
a
max.
pretty good amount, more than like a typical 5 piece like 2 through 4 set bonus would give you. Um, what's really nice about this, I mean, there's so many things. So these sets, these come in any weight, and any item type, any kind of weapon, jewelry, body piece, anything like that. So it's just a great option to have for rounding your builds out, especially, mythic items are in the game now. Arena weapons are more accessible than ever. So like you're trying to work these different things into your build, and a lot of the time you'll find that you have like one or two empty slots that you need to fill up with something. And this is perfect because you can just slide in one, two, or all three pieces of this set just to fill your build out, and you're getting some really good stats from that. Really cool.
Yeah, this is going to be maybe the most kind of extra plug-in set out there now.
Yeah, I think so. Because it doesn't have to be like, we have these 3 piece sets like agility and willpower, and those are nice. Uh, but those are only jewelry and weapons, nothing else. And you don't really get much for just equipping one piece from those, whereas with this you get quite a bit. And it comes in any weight, any item type. So it's just going to be, yeah, just you need a random shoulder piece or whatever to
Yeah.
just fill things out with. I like this. I like this a lot.
Yeah, I think this is fantastic. I even can see the One Piece kind of, a lot of people are just doing One Piece monster sets for a buff. I can
Yeah,
see even people using this over monster sets just to get that 454 health. That's a lot of health.
yeah, absolutely. Another overland set, Beekeeper. So the 3 and 4 piece bonuses are now maximum health rather than health recovery. So that means that all of the 2 through 4 piece bonuses are now max health. And then they, for the 5 piece bonus, they increase the health recovery that it grants to 900, up from 400. So this is a really big buff to this set. So
Yeah.
adding 2 lines of max health makes this set a lot more useful because max health is a stat that you can convert into other stats way more easily than health recovery,
Yep.
right? Like you have 2 lines of health recovery, you're kind of stuck with health recovery, and you can't really trade that for much else. Whereas with max health, you can trade that for stamina, you can trade that for magicka, you can even convert that into stamina recovery if you wanted to. There's a lot you can do with max health, so it makes it a lot easier to just dial your build in and get your stats where you like them. So that's a big advantage there. Plus, with the buff that they're giving to the to the 5 piece bonus, this set gives you way more overall health recovery than it did before anyway. So it's just all around nothing but a buff.
Yeah.
So the total health recovery that this set gives you right now on the live server is 660, and we're going to be getting 900 from just the 5 piece after this patch, if it goes live like this. So more health recovery, more max health, more versatile set, big time buff to this set.
Yeah, this really is just a huge buff to the set. I mean, makes it so much easier to use with the max health, like you said. I can see this set going into rotation a lot more often now.
Briarheart, this is one of our favorite sets. You and I both use this set on different characters.
Yep.
So they slightly reduced the healing that this set gives. It gives you 350 instead of 378. I don't think that's a big deal. They removed the proc chance, so it's a guaranteed crit now. Whenever you deal critical damage, this set procs. As far as what it does when it procs is still the same. You get 450 damage for 10 seconds, and you get that heal whenever you critically strike. So, yeah, I mean, I think, honestly, slightly less healing, but the fact that there's no proc chance now, I think overall that amounts to a buff as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, it's only a 28 reduction in healing, but I feel like them taking away the proc chance, it's actually it's gonna come out to more healing now because it's gonna be up so much more often.
Yeah, you'll have less downtime. So that's cool. I just want to touch on that just because you and I both like that set so much. Draugr's Heritage. This one I think might see a bit more use after this year. So it's going to increase the healing that the set gives you to 8750, up from 7000. They're reducing the cooldown big time to 7 seconds, down from 20 seconds. That's a huge buff there.
Huge reduction.
And just a reminder for what this set does. Whenever you take damage when you're under 35% health, you knock down all enemies within 4 meters and you heal. And that can happen right now, that can happen every 20 seconds. But after this change, that can happen every 7 seconds. I think that's quite a buff.
Yes, that's huge. You know, there's so many of these sets that have this 5 piece where it's when you take damage when you're at 35% and you knock down all enemies within 4 meters. There's a lot of sets that have that ability, but they're all these crazy cooldowns. And so to see this one go down to that massive reduction in cooldown to 7 seconds,
Yeah.
that's huge. You know, I don't know about you, I always look at these sets and I just always skim over them. It's like, oh, that's one of those ones that when you take damage when you're under 35% health, it knocks them all down and then does something. This, I think, I don't know if this is like a test where they're doing it to this one to see how it works out, and maybe the other ones will kind of follow suit later on. But definitely taking a set that I don't know anybody who uses that set. I could definitely see people making a great use out of it now.
Oh yeah, I mean it could be an absolute like maybe it'd be a decent 1vx set. I don't know. I mean, but
Yep.
just I could see like there being several situations where that just kind of bails you out of a bad situation.
Yeah.
Seems decent.
Yeah, it's a really strong heal, but I mean, knocking all enemies down within 4 meters seems, I mean, that's a big
Yeah.
deal.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'd be like if you're surrounded by multiple people. You get a nice little burst heal. You knock everyone down, so you get a second to breathe, go hide behind a wall or something.
Hmm.
Really cool. So yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling we're probably going to see because that's got cheese written all over it, and people love cheese. So I feel like we're going to be seeing that.
Yep.
Just a quick word about Griffin's Ferocity. This set, when it procs, now lasts 10 seconds, up from 3 seconds. I think Christopher ESO is going to be happy about that one, his favorite set.
That's a pretty massive buff. I mean, three
Huge
seconds
buff.
to 10 seconds is huge.
Yeah. And that's like that proc gives you, I think it's Minor Expedition and the critical damage buff. Can't
Yeah.
remember what it's called. Seventh Legion, they decreased the weapon and health recovery down to 341 from 350. So just a very slight nerf there. But they increased the duration and cooldown to 15 seconds. That's up from 10 seconds. I think that's a really, really nice thing right there.
Yes.
And that 15-second duration actually makes this perfect for a stam sort because that's the exact duration of their armor buff. And their armor buff, of course, it's a very obvious visual indicator. So you can just clearly see, oh, my armor buff just dropped off. That means my damage buff dropped off as well. So you just activate your armor buff, your damage buff comes right back. So it's nice that they line up like that. That's only true for a stam sork though. But
Well, even still, I mean, I use this set on my my Stamplar, and I'm looking at this as a huge buff because we've talked about kind of the unique part of this is that it's up for 10 seconds, but you have to wait for the 10 seconds for it to go down.
yeah,
And so you have to kind of carefully time it. So making that longer, I definitely think it is a big buff to this set.
yeah, that's always the thing that I don't like about this set is you can't refresh the duration early. Like the
Mhm.
duration and the cooldown are 10 seconds. So if I recast my armor buff at 9 seconds, it doesn't refresh. It's gonna fall off the next second later, and I have to recast my armor buff again
Mhm.
to reproc it. So that'll definitely alleviate that a little bit. Shadow of the Red Mountain. So I don't know. It's a buff and a nerf. They cut the damage by quite a bit. It's 5918 instead of 8000, but there's no longer a proc chance. And I think the proc chance was like 8% before. So I don't know. Maybe that's a pretty big buff actually.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. That might take some testing, but you actually use this set, don't you? You did.
I have used it. I'm not using it right now, but it's in the inventory. But what's the thing is, I think the cooldown on this thing is 2 seconds.
Wow.
So I mean, 5918 guaranteed every 2 seconds sounds pretty good actually.
Yeah.
The way it is right now on live, the cooldown's 2 seconds, but because it's a low proc chance, you're definitely not getting it every 2 seconds. So it makes sense that they're reducing that damage since it's guaranteed now. Um, Yeah, yeah, pretty nice. Swamp Raider, they increased the weapon damage of your poison and disease attacks by 600. That's up from 450, so that's a pretty big buff. And this is a set that I was toying around with on my Stamina Necromancer, and I logged onto PTS and tried it out again with this buff. I mean, it definitely is stronger. But I still think that the other sets that I was looking at still a little bit better. But big buff there to that set. And the Sword Singer and Sword Dancer. These are the sets that increase the damage of your dual wield abilities or your two handed abilities specifically. They got the same treatment. They're going to add 600 damage to those abilities rather than 450.
Yeah.
You use at least one of these sets, right?
Yep, I use Sword Singer with my Stamina Necro, so I'm super excited about this. I'll take an extra 150 weapon damage. Just like you said with Swamp Raider and Sword Singer and Sword Dancer, I am slightly bummed because it seems like they're taking these specific damage sets and buffing them. And my Stam Warden, I use Innate Axiom, and Automatons. And I would love if just one of those got this same treatment.
Yeah, they're not doing it to those.
Nope. But I'm still excited about this because this is going to be, this is just a flat 150 weapon damage buff to my Stam Necro, which, hey, that's fantastic.
Yeah, pretty nice. So I think that's all the Overland sets I wanted to talk about. Let's move on to some dungeon sets that have been reworked. So Burning Spellweave, man, this has been one of the best sets in the game for a really long time. Still a very, very good set, especially for Magicka Dragon Knights. So they're reducing the spell damage that it grants just a little bit. It's going to be 490 instead of 525, but it no longer has a proc chance. And of course, you're seeing a pattern here, right? Basically every set that has a proc chance, there's no more proc chance, and this is because of this is a performance-related decision that they're making, right? It's just less math that the server has to do when they do it this way. So instead of having proc chances, they're just like reducing cooldowns or changing the amount of damage that things do, and then giving them a guaranteed proc chance. And the idea is that probably the overall performance of the set is going to be similar, but the performance of the game hopefully will overall be better because of it. So, Burning Spellweave no longer has a proc chance, and it deals slightly less damage, or it gives you slightly less of a damage buff. So, what that means to me is this is no longer a Dragon Knight set, because as it has been up to this point, basically Dragon Knights are the only class that deal enough flame damage to consistently proc this set and get enough of a benefit out of it to make it worthwhile. That's not going to be the case anymore since it has a guaranteed proc chance. I mean, anyone with a fire staff is going to be just as effective as a Dragon Knight with this set. So, I mean, not to say it's bad for a Dragon Knight. It's still good for a Dragon Knight, but
I think it's a good change, but it's kind of crazy, because it's like this has been the DK set for like the beginning of time. So to think of it not as a DK set anymore is kind of wild.
Yeah. I mean, there was a period of time when this was the meta PvE DPS set for every Magicka build. That's been quite some time, though, and it's really been specifically the Mag DK set for a few years now. Combat Physician, so they got me really excited about this one, and then I got really bummed about this as I kept reading. So the cooldown is now per target rather than for the set. Which is awesome. It's something that I've been wanting to happen for a long time. So that means this can proc over and over again on multiple targets simultaneously. But they reduced the shield size significantly. It's the shield size is now 4308 instead of 9506, and in PvP that gets cut in half. So it's a 2000 damage shield in PvP. It's a real bummer. It's not usable at all.
Yeah,
probably still usable in PvE. It's probably all right. But yeah, that's a bummer.
It's a bummer.
This next set, Sheer Venom, this is one that I farmed recently just to try it out, and it is a good set, and I think I'm going to have to test it out some more after this. So now it's going to deal 8766 damage over 6 seconds, but now it's going to deal up to 100% more damage to targets below 100% health. So the tooltip, that 8766, that's a slightly buffed tooltip. It was 8428 before, so basically the same amount of damage, slightly more. But then it ramps up as your enemy loses health. And They don't say exactly where it caps out. I'm guessing when they get down into execute range, like around 25% health is probably when you're going to be at that one close to that 100% amplifier there.
Hmm.
But that's pretty cool. It's a really cool because this set procs from an execute ability. So what you do is you use poison injection, right? That's a dot, but it's also an execute ability. So as your target is losing health, that thing keeps ticking. It's going to keep proccing this set, and as they lose health, this set is doing more and more and more damage. And then when they get down into execute range, of course, poison injection starts doing its execute damage as well. So I could see this being a set where you get someone kind of low on health, and then they have a really hard time climbing back up out of that. Um, and spell power cure, slight buff to this. Now, when you overheal someone, it's a guaranteed proc rather than a 50% chance. So it's just guaranteed to happen anytime you overheal anyone.
Yeah, that's a nice little buff right there for spell power cure.
Yeah. Nice little buff for spell power cure, a little buff for the server. Everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
So that's the dungeon sets. There are some trial sets here. There's a kind of a batch of changes here. I'll just read this really quick. The following sets now affect you and 5 other group members rather than you and 3 other allies. So 5 group members rather than 3 allies. And the duration of the set is now determined by the amount of ultimate points that you spend. So 1 second for every 14 ultimate used. So the sets affected by that are Automated Defense, Master Architect, War Machine, and Inventor's Guard. So those things basically is just going to apply to half your raid group rather than just 3 random allies. And the duration is determined by how many ultimate points you spend. Healing Mage. This is a set that I use on my Magicka Necromancer Healer. It's a really good set, and they're changing it a bit. I don't know if it's a good change or a bad change. It's a change. So this set now reduces nearby enemies' weapon and spell damage by 286 for 5 seconds, rather than just weapon damage by 430 for 3 seconds. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, there's a little bit to unpack there. So for one, I kind of liked that it only applied to weapon damage because it has a short radius. I think it only has like an 8 or 10 meter radius, and most enemies that are within that range, their stamina builds spamming dizzying swing.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I would rather have a bigger damage reduction for just stamina builds.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it is nice to be able to apply that to Magicka builds. You do have melee Magicka builds too. You have Mag DKs, you have Mag Plars, things like that. So this will apply to them. Plus, lasting 5 seconds rather than 3 seconds is going to make it way, way easier to maintain a decent uptime on this ability. Because right now, on my Mag Crow, I have to do this crazy, crazy rotation just to keep this debuff active on people. And this is going to let me be able to relax at least once in a while and not worry so much about that.
That was my big question: is what does the 3 seconds to 5 seconds do for you? And it sounds like that's quite a bit of buff.
It's going to make a huge difference. Yeah. So I still really like this set. Definitely going to keep using it for sure. Poisonous Serpent. This is a set that I do use. This is the set that I have landed on for my Stamina Necromancer. So they're increasing the damage to 3945 up from 3000. That's almost a 33% damage increase, right? That's pretty good.
Yeah.
They increased the cooldown to 2 seconds up from 1 second. So that sounds bad, but they removed the proc chance. It had a 50% proc chance before. Now it's a guaranteed proc. So, whereas before I was getting on average about a proc every other second, now I'm guaranteed to be getting a proc every single second. Oops, I meant 2 seconds. And it's more damage now. So definitely happy with that change. Not mad at all.
Yeah, that seems like overall just a slight buff.
Yeah, totally. Yandir's Might. This is a weird one. This is a set that we were pretty excited about in the past, although I don't think we've ever actually used it, but we just have really liked the idea of this set. And man, I don't know. They're doing some weird stuff with it here. So each stack of Giant's Endurance now grants 74 weapon damage rather than 69 stamina recovery. And then the cooldown for generating these stacks has been reduced to 0.5 seconds instead of 1 second. it's a weird thing. So the reminder, what this set does, when you deal critical damage, you gain a stack of Giant's Endurance, which gives you 69 stamina recovery. You can get up to 5 stacks. So you get these stacks of stamina recovery, and then whenever you feel like it, you can do a heavy attack, and you consume those stacks of recovery and trade them for Giant's Might, which gives you 111 weapon damage for each one of those stacks that you consume. So it's just, we always thought this was such a cool set because it's a sustain set. And then whenever you're ready, it turns into a damage set. And you can kind of choose when you want to be in one mode versus the other. Such a cool idea for a set. So now what we're doing is the stacks, instead of giving you stamina recovery, the stacks are giving you weapon damage. And then you do a heavy attack to trade that weapon damage for more weapon damage. Right?
Yeah. I would think, I mean, I guess it depends on the situation, but with the way they have it set up now, wouldn't it be better just to hold on to the stacks? I mean, I wonder what's the difference between. So there's 74 weapon damage per stack. If you use the heavy attack, you get 111 weapon damage per stack, which is nice for the burst. But after you do that, then you lose your stacks, right? Because when you lose the stacks, you get that weapon damage buff for I don't remember how long, but
yeah, exactly. So yeah, it might just be better just to keep the stacks forever and never do that heavy attack, right? Because then you have to gain those
yeah,
stacks back after that.
yeah. This is a set that when they first announced it, we were really excited about. Thought it was a really cool set, cool idea for a set. And it seems that ever since they released that, they've been tweaking it, and at least in my opinion, it's been every tweak they've made, it's been a little bit less and less appealing.
I'm betting that on their end of things, it probably just isn't getting used a lot. It's a really cool idea for a set, but I think just not a lot of people are actually using it, and so they're trying to make it more appealing. It's just like the whole idea of this set is like completely ruined. Like you trading one thing for another was so cool, and now you're not trading anything for anything. You get damage, and then you can trade it for damage. It's just strange. It's a strange change. And I don't think it's going to make it any more popular either.
It seems like it just kind of, they sacrificed all the uniqueness of the set to just say, just give it weapon damage.
Damage and then more damage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Powerful Assault. This is a set that I use on my Stamina Warden Healer that's still kind of in the works. So now it's going to grant 307 weapon and spell damage to group members within a 10-meter radius for 10 seconds. Rather than 164 weapon and spell damage to group members within a 15-meter radius for 15 seconds. So buffed and nerfed, right? It gives a lot more damage to those players, but the radius has been reduced, right? 10 meters instead of 5 meters. And then the duration has been reduced, 10 seconds instead of 15 seconds. Or did I say 5 meters? 10 meters instead of 15 meters, 10 seconds instead of 15 seconds.
Yeah. I actually think this is a buff just because, if you're a healer, if you've got a good group, they really should stay with, you should be staying with the healer. So this just kind of encourages that a little bit.
Well, what
more.
I really liked about the 15-meter radius is the vigor, the friendly vigor more for that it actually heals your allies. That has exactly a 15-meter radius, and it's an assault ability, so it procs the set. So it was perfect. You just know, okay, if I hit somebody with vigor, that means they're getting this buff because they have the exact same radius.
Yeah.
So now you don't have that guarantee, but still you're getting a lot more damage from it. It's definitely a good thing. It actually gives more damage than Spell Power Cure gives now.
Yeah, 307 weapon and spell damage buff. That's a huge buff.
It's really nice. So my Stamina Warden Healer, I think, is going to really come into place now. This set was just like his main set is getting buffed. Plus that redistributor set that I've been wanting to use is getting buffed as well. So I think he's finally going to be in a really, really good place and be a seriously legitimate healer.
It's going to be a real nice setup.
Some monster sets were reworked as well. The couple I want to talk about, Blood Spawn. So they kind of have unnerfed it a little bit. So they increased the armor rating that it grants you to 3731 up from 3300. So just a slight increase there. And then here's the big one. They increased the ultimate that it grants you to 13 up from 8. And remember, Davius, you reminded me of this the other day. They reduced the cooldown on this thing when they touched on this last time. So even though, it was 14 ultimate before, Now it's 13 ultimate, but it procs more often, so you're actually getting more ultimate overall than you were before.
Yep. I'm super excited about this. Bloodspawn is back to being a major ultimate generating
Yeah,
set. So and you know me, I'm all about the ultimate, and the armor is nice. I don't even really read that line
yeah,
on this set. I just give me more ultimate.
yeah. It's really nice. Very, very happy to see that. And Dragon Knights everywhere rejoice, right?
That's right.
And the other monster set I wanted to talk about, this is a really good change on Grothdar. So this set now only activates if you are within 8 meters of the enemy, since that's the radius that it deals damage in. That's super, super nice. I use Grothdar on my Magicka Templar. And in PvP, the way I do my Templar, I'll start off at range. I'll hit him with Entropy to get my damage buff, and then I'll hit him with Power of the Light, and then I'll gap close to actually attack them. But a lot of the time, Grothdar will proc while I'm at range, and then by the time I gap close, the proc is gone, and I'm not getting to benefit from it anymore. So this change will make it so that Grothar's not going to proc until I do that gap closer. So I get to save it. It's really nice.
Yeah, that seems that's one of those things. It's a very very subtle change, but I do think it'll make a big difference for an already really great set.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's super. This set has become super popular in PvP here lately because I think a bunch of monster sets were nerfed recently, and I think Grothdar is one of the few that really wasn't nerfed, and it's still very very strong. So yeah, that's a very good change. Happy about that. And then for mythic items, the only one I wanted to talk about was the Thracian Stranglers, and it's a weird one. I don't know about this one. So they reduce the spell damage granted per stack to 92, down from 150. That's a pretty big reduction. And then they reduce the penalties per stack to 1% instead of 2%. So 1% additional damage taken. So I think total stacks you're taking 20% additional damage instead of 40%. And then this is the one that I just really don't know about. The stacks from this set now last 30 seconds and refresh every time you gain a stack rather than being permanent. And then the last thing, the set also grants weapon damage instead of just spell damage. So stamina builds can use it now too. The 30-second thing, I think, is what kills this set, at least for PvP, totally destroys it. Because the way people were using this, right, is they would go into Cyrodiil, they would go to a resource, kill everything there. Now they have all their stacks, and then they continue on and do some PvP.
Yeah.
That's not going to be possible now. You go take out a resource, and then it's going to probably be more than 30 seconds before you find an actual player to fight. So you're going to lose those stacks. It's totally not a PvP set anymore, unless maybe you're an Imperial City.
It's the mythic item that me and you have always been kind of the least intrigued by, and this kind of even lowers the intrigue a little bit more. So I don't know. Maybe adding weapon damage opens this up to some more build ideas, but me personally, I'm just still not intrigued by this. I don't have a build where I want to use this on.
I think I want to try it on my PvE Magblade. I think it could be really good on that character for specifically PvE. But I was, before this, I was really thinking like, man, I think I might try to make some sort of like paper cannon PvP build. I think that could be fun. But now that's just right out the window, man. That's just not even possible, at least not with the Thracian Stranglers. So, why don't we take a quick break and we'll come back and finish out talking about what's going on in these patch notes. So we will be right back. We have some more to get into here. That's all the armor set discussion that we wanted to get into. There's a lot more than that. But we just picked out, kind of the juicy ones that we really wanted to talk about. So let's move right on and talk about some of these skill changes that are happening with classes and weapons and stuff like that. We'll start off with Dragon Knight. So their Inhale ability, the Deep Breath morph is getting an additional 25% damage with whenever it explodes at the end. And then the Draw Essence morph is getting buffed. It's going to heal for 150% of the damage done instead of 100%. So both morphs getting a bit of a buff there. It's already a pretty good ability, so it's nice to see it get brought up just a little bit.
Yeah, that's just kind of a buff on both abilities. Just overall nice little buff there. I think that's only good things from that.
For sure. We love buffs. Give
That's
us all
right.
the buffs. Um, Necromancer, the Grave Grasp ability, and they gave us a little preview on what they were wanting to do with this a week or so ago. So now we're seeing it in the notes. So this is the ability where you toss those three like dark circles on the ground, and it applies minor maim and a root to the people that it hits. So they've changed it now. So now the first circle is going to apply a 30% snare. The second circle is going to do a 4-second immobilization, and the third circle is going to apply a 3-second stun. To I think each one of those circles only that effect only applies to one person standing in it. And they say that they're wanting to make this ability more enticing because according to their data, this is the least used ability in the Necromancer's skill line, so they're trying to spice it up a bit. I just don't know if this is going to be enough. I think they need to keep trying here. I think they're kind of on the right track of adding a stun to it. That definitely makes it more appealing. But the fact that that stun is only in that third circle makes it weird. You have to be exactly the right distance away from your target. You can't be too close. You can't be too far away. So
Yeah.
I just don't know about that.
Yeah, I just look at this as as a crowd control ability, and they already have, they have the totem ability, which is one of the in my opinion, one of the best crowd control abilities in the game.
Yeah.
And I just can't see anybody, with your bar setup, there, you only have so many slots, and so I just can't see anybody putting this in their bar over that totem. The totem seems a lot better than this from a crowd control standpoint. So I still don't think
Yeah.
that anybody's gonna be using this.
And like on my Mag Crow, it's a healer. The biggest competitor to this skill on my bar, I think, is Wall of Elements from the Destruction Staff skill line. So I use a Frost Staff, a charged Frost Staff, and so with that, Wall of Elements does a lot of what Grave Grasp does, but I think it does it better. It's frost damage, my staff is charged, so I have a really high chance of applying the chilled status effect, which applies minor maim just like Grave Grasp does. Plus, it's immobilizing people, and it's slowing them down, and it's dealing damage to them. And it covers a huge area, and I don't have to worry about if I'm too close or too far or whatever. It just does the same thing no matter what. It just seems better to me. So I like, I definitely love the fact that they look at that data, they say nobody likes this skill, let's make it better. I think they just need to keep trying on this one.
Yeah, I mean that's a great sign that they're looking at that data, and they're it means they're looking at that data in multiple places, and they're seeing and so they're making changes. So a great sign from that standpoint. I just think that they're gonna have to do a little bit more to make this ability more used.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on and talk about Nightblade. Some cool stuff happening here. So the Grim Focus ability. This is Nightblade's main burst attack. And if you've never played a Nightblade, what this ability does is whenever you do damage with a light attack, it gives you a stack, and then each one of those stacks will reduce your damage taken by 2%. You can get up to 5 stacks. And then when you get those 5 stacks, you can activate the ability again, and you lose those stacks, but it fires this really hard hitting ability at your target. It's their, one of the main ways that Nightblades do huge amounts of damage, and it's one of the main ways that they kind of are tanky and can survive a lot of damage. So they're changing it so that this ability now grants 2% critical damage and healing per stack, rather than reducing your damage taken by 2% per stack. I think that is a fantastic change for Nightblades. Nightblades are a crit based class, so anything crit related is going to be a great thing for them. And this is also, they say that this is in order to help this ability feel more aggressive and assassination oriented, which is exactly what a Nightblade needs. We are seeing far too many tanky Magblades out there. It makes no sense for this stealthy assassin to just be like straight up face tanking a group of 4 players. So I'm glad to kind of see them be more encouraged to be offensive, aggressive, maybe a bit more glassy.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, we've talked about for a long time now about how this weird tanky Nightblade uh build, this common tanky Nightblade out there, how it just doesn't fit the class. It's a
Yeah,
good
it's weird.
build, but it just doesn't fit the class. Nightblade of all the classes should be almost the most glass cannon, in is if you're looking at all the classes, it's always been this is the high single target damage class. It's stealthy, it's assassin. And so it's just been weird for a really long time to see how tanky some of these Nightblades are, especially some of these Mag Blades. And so changing it back to kind of the roots and the idea of the class I think is a fantastic change.
Yeah, and you get all five stacks, and that's an extra 10% critical damage and critical healing.
Hmm.
If you happen to be a Khajiit, you get that's another 10% critical damage and healing from your race passives there. Plus, Nightblades have other crit bonuses as well. So it's a really really good change. It's very self synergistic. I like it a lot.
Hmm.
Another change that's happening here is the Master Assassin passives being changed a little bit. So the weapon and spell damage that it grants you now applies to your damaging attacks against enemies that you are flanking, rather than giving you a universal amount while you are sneaking or invisible. And the amount that it gives is now a flat 258 weapon and spell damage rather than plus 10%. And that's in alignment with what they've been doing. They've been doing that for a few patches now. Like any kind of percent bonus, they're changing it to a flat amount.
Hmm.
Um, so it's kind of getting the same treatment that surprise attack got recently, right? It's no longer encouraging you to use stealth, but they want you to flank your enemies instead. This is actually a really, really good change for PvE because, if you're a PvE, say Stand Blade, you're not using stealth in a boss fight whatsoever, but you are flanking the boss almost certainly, right?
Yeah.
So this is a passive that you really PvE Nightblades weren't getting to benefit from before. Now they do. That's nice. All right, let's talk about sorcerers, and this might take up a little bit of time because some really, really interesting things are happening for sorcerers, especially stamina sorcerers. So Crystal Shard. This is like maybe one of the most iconic abilities for a sorcerer. So they have reduced the cast time of this ability, and it's morphs to 800 milliseconds, down from 1 second. And then they reduce the damage done from these abilities by approximately 21%. Big, big damage nerf.
Huge nerf.
They also slightly reduce the cost, 2,700 instead of 2,970. And then these abilities, they say, have a new affix where after you successfully cast it, your next non-ultimate ability used within 3 seconds costs 10% less. So that's actually a pretty big sustain buff right there. And so then the Crystal Frags morph. This ability can now proc itself, so you could potentially get back to back to back Crystal Frags. Really, really cool.
Hmm.
I don't know if that quite makes up for the 21% damage nerf. It seems considerable.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I feel like this isn't the ability that people have been asking to get nerfed. I feel like Mage's Wrath is the ability that people want to get nerfed, not this one. But anyway, and then they further reduce the damage of Crystal Frags by another 1%.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I mean, Crystal Frags it's always a heavy hitter, and but I mean, it seems like they kind of made all these little real nice changes to it, and then they just kind of slid in there. Oh, by the way, it's a 21% damage reduction, and it's like, oh man, that is.
It's a major damage reduction, and Crystal Frags by itself isn't really all that big of a deal. It's the fact that you can line it up with the Haunting Curse and then have a Mage's Wrath right behind it. That
Yep.
that full combo is what's really tough. Crystal Frags by itself isn't really all that tough. I think it's Mage's Wrath is really the thing that needs to be looked at there.
I don't know. Maybe this starts a change where every Mag Sorc doesn't use the same rotation. If that's the case,
Maybe.
I'm excited about that. But I don't know. I think this kind of like what we were saying with the Necromancer ability, kind of on the ultimates, the other side of it. But if they're looking at abilities and seeing the least used ability and they're making buffs, maybe they looked at Crystal Shard and Crystal Frag and said, okay, every single Mag Sorc has this ability. Maybe we want to change it up to where it's not every single one of them is using it.
Possibly so. I mean, I know they definitely are motivated by that. Sometimes it seems like anything that becomes super popular is definitely going to get nerfed at some point.
That's what created the saga of Dizzying Swing.
Yeah, and here we are. Okay, but the really interesting thing about what's changing with this ability is the Crystal Blast morph. Okay, this thing is being totally reinvented. So it's been reworked into a stamina morph, and it's been renamed Crystal Weapon. It's now an instant cast ability that causes your next light or heavy attack made within 4 seconds to deal additional damage. And they say that that damage is equal to the standard spammable amount, such as Lava Whip or Veiled Strike. And then enemies hit by this ability will have their armor reduced by up to 1,000. I guess if it's fully ranked, it's 1,000. So man, there's a lot to unpack here, right?
Yeah.
So number one, I think this is something that sorcerers in general have been asking for a long time, a class spammable. Now this is only for Stam Sorks, so Mag Sorks don't get to have it, but that's not a big deal, I don't think. But that's significant. It's a class spammable. Sorcerers have never had that before. And if you're like me and you're reading this description, your first thought is that sounds a lot like the Psijic Order ability, Crushing Weapon. Right, and let me just remind you of what that ability does. Infuse your weapon with power, causing your next light attack used within 2 seconds to deal additional damage equivalent to a spammable's damage, and it heals you for 28% of the damage done. So these do very similar things, right? Both of them charge up your weapon so that your next light attack deals a spammable amount of damage, right? There are some differences, though. This new crystal weapon will also apply to heavy attacks. So whereas crushing weapon only applies to light attacks. But I don't know. I think it seems kind of lame. The fact that the animation, like I tested this out on the test server, the animation is literally exactly the same, and that to me seems kind of lame because we got this bound armaments rework recently, which is kind of a copy paste of the Nightblade's Grim Focus ability that we were just talking about, right? You do light attacks to gain these stacks, and then after you have all the stacks, you activate the ability again to fire off a burst attack, right? It's like exactly like Grim Focus. So it's cool that Stam Sorks are getting these things, access to these class abilities that they haven't been able to use before, but it kind of feels like they're just getting hand-me-downs rather than a unique thing of their own.
Yeah, especially with the animations and the types. And just the abilities, like you said, being so similar. And, I don't know that, I know a lot of things go into it. This is specifically to Sorks, and I know non-Sorks use that Psijic Order ability. But it almost seems silly that there's two separate abilities that almost do the same thing, and they both exist in the game. It seems like that's an opportunity to have another unique ability there. And I think it's important to note that, people could say, oh, well, the crushing weapon one, that one heals you, where this one, the Sork one does the armor reduction. Well, with the passives of a Sork, the Sork one does heal you.
Yeah, the Sork one heals you too. So they really are very similar, and the animations are literally identical, except, the sorcerer one, the crystal weapon, there's some additional particle effects, but as far as like the way your character moves, it's exactly the same.
Yeah, it's a good ability, but like I said, it seems silly to have two same abilities in the game. But they've created a tricky situation now because a lot of Stam Sorks are going to be really excited that this ability's there, and I see a lot of them using it. But there's no real way to back out of having two same abilities now, because if you take this away from Stam Sorks, you just introduced it, so that's going to bump people out. And if you take that Psijic Order ability and change that completely, well, then non-Sorks that are using that ability are going to be really upset. So so
we're probably just kind of stuck with it.
Yeah, it just kind of seems like we kind of got put in a bad spot.
So there's that. Honestly, though, that's the one negative thing I have to say about this is it's a reused animation, basically. Everything else about this is actually awesome. This is a really, really good ability, despite the copied animation. So, for one, just like you said, Davius, this activates the Sorcerer's Blood Magic passive. This was a previously totally dead passive for Stam Sorks. You didn't get to use it at all. So when you hit an enemy directly with a dark magic ability, you heal for X amount every zero point 0.5 seconds. And that amount is based on your max health. And so on the PTS, I logged in with my Stamsork, he has about 23k health, and with no champion points, that tooltip is about 2400. So every time you hit somebody with this thing, you're getting a 2400 heal, and
Wow.
the cooldown is 0.5 seconds. So you're going to get it every single time you use this ability. So that's cool. Stamsorks get to use a passive that they haven't gotten to use before. Really, really nice. It also activates the Expert Mage passive. You get an extra 2% weapon and spell damage for every sorcerer ability slotted. So like my Stamsork, I'm already slotting Bound Armaments and Streak on the front bar. So this is just another one I can slide in there. That's going to be a total of 6% extra weapon damage. And, I'm also using Camo Hunter and Dawnbreaker from the Fighters Guild skill line. And those combined give me another 6%. So just having abilities slotted, I have 12% additional weapon damage on my front bar. And this new ability plays into that. Very nice. I have a few more things. I'm just so excited about this. I can't stop rambling. It's really cheap. At its base, it costs about 400 less than Crushing Weapon. Plus, it has this new thing where whenever you use it, it decreases the cost of your next non-ultimate ability by 10%. So it already costs less. Plus, it's reducing the cost of itself or whatever else you cast after it. So just using it is going to benefit your sustain big time. It works for ranged builds, right? You could have a bow on the front bar and use this as your spammable. We were talking about the fact that it's a reused animation like Crushing Weapon, which is kind of lame, but there is one really cool thing that comes with that. Which is, since they do work the same way, you can use them both and you can stack them. So you can cast this crystal weapon, then cast Crushing Weapon. You have both of those things charged up. Then you hit an enemy with one single light attack that's going to do, a ton of damage. And so I imagine like if you have your Bound Armaments, all 4 stacks of that charged up, you charge both of these spammables up, and then you do one light attack weave into Bound Armaments, and maybe a spin to win after that, and that's probably going to be the fight right there.
Yeah, that's a nice little setup.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. I really love this change right here, especially the fact that it just kind of all of a sudden just activates these passives that you haven't really gotten to use before. Really cool. Another thing, so that's all about that spammable. They've also touched on the Sorcerer's Rebate passive. So when it's fully ranked, it's now going to restore 300 Magicka or Stamina, depending on what kind of ability you use, when one of your Daedric Summoning non-ultimate abilities ends. Before, this ability would just restore just Magicka, whenever a pet dies. So again, this was a totally dead passive for Stamsorks. Stamsorks generally don't use pets at all, and even if they did, when that pet dies, you're getting Magicka back, which, you'd probably rather have Stamina. So now you're getting Stamina and Magicka, and it's whenever one of your Daedric Summoning abilities ends. So Bound Armaments, for example, which you're probably going to be using as a Stamsork. So again, this is another previously dead passive that Stamsorks now are getting to use. This is a really, really, really great patch for Stamsorks. Probably the best patch ever for a Stamina Sorcerer, I would say.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's the time of the Stamsork.
Yeah, really pumped about it. So let's move on and talk a little bit about Templar. So the Burning Light passive has been reworked a little bit. So now it's going to trigger whenever you deal damage 4 times in rapid succession with an Aedric Spear ability. And whereas right now you have a 25% chance to proc it whenever you hit someone with an Aedric Spear ability. So it should be, in general, on average, about the same amount of procs, but just a little bit more consistent. You're going to get about 1 proc per cast of jabs, which is about the same as what you got before, but more consistently.
Yeah.
The Radial Sweep Ultimate, it finally happened. We knew this was coming. This ability and its morphs now have a minor cast time to help better sync with their damage and animation, as well as adding for more time for counterplay to react. It's weird that they didn't just do this when they did it to all the others before, like Dawnbreaker and Onslaught
Hmm.
and all those others. Like, why did this one get left out? And it's been left unchanged this whole time, and then now they're finally doing it. Um, it's a bummer. This is, I main a Stamplar in PvP, and this is my favorite ultimate to use because it doesn't have a cast time. I can dodge cancel it and stuff like that. Now I'm really going to be rethinking whether I actually want to use this ability or not. It's I might switch to Dawnbreaker now since I have to deal with the cast time either way.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about. Does this make Dawnbreaker much more appealing to you?
I mean, it definitely makes me take another look at it, and I'm gonna have to like
Yeah.
test and compare and see for sure.
The only benefit to this one now is it's a very low cost ultimate ability.
It's
But
low cost and it can proc Burning Light. That's the
yeah,
kind of the main things. Um, so yeah, that's a bummer, but it was only a matter of time. I knew. I mean, it's weird that it didn't happen with all the others, so it was bound to happen eventually. And then the ritual of retribution, the morph of your healing ritual. Now this morph only deals damage, no more healing, just damage. And now the damage increases by 5% for each tick for the duration up to a maximum of 35%. So it could potentially be a lot of damage. Probably only really useful in a PVE situation, I imagine.
yep, yep. I actually use this retribution morph right now on my Stamplar, but I'm gonna be switching it. Yep, got to switch it back to heals because I mean it's right now I'm using it as a back bar, still a heal ability, but it was just nice that when I proc it, all right, just some extra dots on people when I switch back to the front bar and hit. It's just in a PvP, setup, it'd be a very weird ability to try to utilize as a damage ability.
Let's talk about vampire here.
Oh boy.
So yeah, oh boy. Eviscerate. This is the vampire spammable. So they have decreased the execute multiplier on this ability and the arterial burst morph down to 33% instead of 50%. And then the blood for blood morph, which is the one that everyone likes, they decreased the execute multiplier on that morph down to 60% instead of 100%. And then the final nail in the coffin, haha. After casting this ability, you cannot be healed by allies for 5 seconds. That basically makes this ability seriously not usable, right?
That was it. That was it with vampires. Close the door, pack it up, put it back up on the shelf.
This one is a head scratcher, man. So by all accounts, the vampire rework has been not super well received. Would you say?
Yeah, it's just not exciting. It's just not.
And it just doesn't perform well. And the one saving grace was for PvE Magicka builds, this eviscerate spammable or the blood for blood spammable was basically the meta spammable. This was the thing that made vampires good, at least for PvE raids and stuff like that, because the fact that it costs health means that it has a massive impact on your sustain. Right, this is your spammable. This is the ability that you're casting more than any other ability and it's not hitting your magicka pool at all. That's a huge bonus to sustain. And there's usually enough healing going on in a group where it doesn't matter that it's costing health. Your health is staying topped up pretty well anyway. If it wasn't for this one ability, nobody would be a vampire. No one serious about endgame PvE would be a vampire. This is the
Yep.
one ability that makes it worthwhile. And if you can't be healed for 5 seconds after using it, and it's costing health, you're just not gonna be able to use it. You just can't use it.
Yeah.
And the fact that the damage is being significantly nerfed at the same time.
Yeah. Just yeah. So the last podcast I was on 2 podcasts ago, I'd said, oh, maybe I'm looking, or maybe I'll brush the dust off the old vampire. Not true. It's back up on the shelf now after this. It's just
Well, let me remind you and our listeners that it's week 1 of PTS, so who knows,
it's true.
but man, just the fact that this is even a proposed change seems disheartening.
It's like werewolf is what vampire should have been. Like what werewolf is now.
it's the year of the vampire. It's an all vampire themed year of DLC. And yeah, like werewolf is like straight OP right now. And you would think vampire should be, if anything's OP right now, it should be the vampire. And maybe this spammable is being used by every Magicka build in PvE right now. And maybe they want to balance that out a little bit, but it seems like they should just let that fly for a while. It's the year of the vampire. Just let it be OP for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not even
Well, I think
OP though.
even
It's like just this one ability is popular, but otherwise it's not even an OP thing.
yeah, and I think the way people are using it's almost a loophole. They're not using it. They're only using it because it costs health, and they're not using it like in stage 4 vampire. They're popping into stage 1 vampire so they get access to this ability, and then they're using it just for a sustained purpose. So it's almost kind of like even the PvP high usage of vampire is more of a loophole. It's not even about being a vampire.
Yeah. So that's I hope we probably have another 4 or 5 weeks of PTS, and I'm sure lots and lots of things will be adjusted before it goes live. But week one usually does at least indicate the direction things will go. I mean, this ability probably will be nerfed. Maybe not this severely, but it probably will be nerfed. So just prepare yourself for that.
Yep.
And the last ability change I want to talk about here is Vigor from the Assault skill line. So this ability is now the first skill that you unlock in the Assault skill line. So it swap places with Rapid Maneuvers. So Rapid Maneuvers is now the second skill in that skill line. Sorry to listeners if you're thinking your iPhone is ringing. It's mine. I didn't have the ringer off. So what's cool about that is now you can just go do the Welcome to Cyrodiil quest. You don't even have to engage in any PvP whatsoever. Just do that initial quest, and then you have Vigor unlocked. You can go just forget about PvP and just go do some PvE. The one bummer to me, though, is, whenever I make a brand new character, usually the first thing I do is go do that Cyrodiil quest to get rapid so I can actually get around on the map fairly fast because I have a brand new mount that's super slow. So I'm kind of bummed that I'll actually have to work a little bit to get that skill now, but probably most players are going to be happy to be able to just easily unlock Vigor like that.
Yeah, I think it's a good change for stamina players to get their heal early. But like you said, I mean, I always get rapids as well, so this really overall this isn't changing a whole lot for me, maybe just timing, but I'm still going to get both these abilities.
Yeah.
But some of those classes when you're a low level and you're building a stamina class and you don't have a heal, it does make things a little bit tougher. So this, I think, is going to help with that.
Yeah, just to right out of the gate to have the best stamina heal in the game, just right off the bat, that's going to be a great thing. Well, as soon as you're level 10, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so that's all the skill changes. There's a few other things. Let's talk about some traits and Mundus Stone stuff here. I'll probably skip over some of these. Basically, every single trait and Mundus Stone, with maybe a couple of exceptions, have been adjusted. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to focus on the ones that are the juiciest. So armor traits, the Divine's trait, it's increasing the bonus to your Mundus Stone by 9.1% instead of 7.5%. Giant buff to the Divine's trait.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Impenetrable, getting nerfed. So the critical resistance is going to be 127 instead of 172. So that's probably going to affect how I build my PvP characters. I'm probably going to be doing 4 Impen instead of 3 Impen on a lot of characters, just to stay up at that 1800 critical resistance range where I'm trying to stay at. Although for my roly-polies, I think I may still do 3 Impen 4 well-fitted, because I think just the dodgy nature of those builds, they can handle that slight reduction.
Yeah. The one thing I'll say that's kind of a bummer about that nerf is that with the changes that they just launched with Impen and then the built-in crit resist, I think a lot of people have transmuted gear to reflect that, and now it's almost like, oh, well, get ready to transmute.
I know.
Get ready for some more transmutes again.
I know. I'm glad these notes are out now, because I'm about to do a bunch of transmuting, and this will definitely affect that. Well fitted. My probably my favorite trait, getting buffed. So the cost reduction granted is going to be 6% per piece instead of 5%. So a tiny little buff. I'll take that for sure. Um, yeah, basically all the rest. I think Nirnhone was nerfed, but basically all the rest of the traits there were buffed just slightly.
Yep.
Let's talk about some weapon traits. The main one really is the decisive trait that I wanted to talk about. So increase the chance for this trait to proc to 55% instead of 40%. If you don't remember decisive, it's whenever you gain ultimate, you have a 40% chance to gain one additional ultimate. So now it's going to be a 55% chance to gain an additional ultimate. So significant buff to that.
Yeah,
To
I'm
that trait.
super excited. I already used the decisive trait a lot just because I love those ultimate builds. So this is going to be, if this stays this way, it's going to be fantastic. That's a major buff right there.
People sleep on decisive, especially I think on Dragon Knight builds. It's a good trait if you have a build that you're gaining ultimate at a high frequency. You can actually get a lot out of that trait.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Defending and sharpened was buffed. Precise was buffed. So basically, just everything's better now. um, all right, jewelry traits. So bloodthirsty. This trait now grants up to 250 weapon and spell damage against targets under 90% health, and that they say that scales per 1% of missing health rather than just granting a flat 10% against targets that are under 25% health. So that's kind of nice. You actually get to benefit from Bloodthirsty for the majority of the fight rather than just the last 25%. And it's just dealing a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more damage as your target loses health.
Yeah, that seems like a good change to make you get more out of that. Yeah, overall a good change. Just more usage.
Yeah, because that's always the thing that kind of turns me off to Bloodthirsty. Is like, well, it doesn't do anything for 75% of the fight, you know?
Right.
so, the Harmony trait, they reduced the synergy effectiveness bonus to 20% instead of 35%. And I think this is probably in reaction to players complaining about Magic and Necro graveyard builds where they activate their own synergy. You know, they can do Harmony on all three jewelry pieces, and it's just a megaton of damage if you're standing in that graveyard when they activate that synergy. It is lights out, especially if a blast, a blast bones is on its way at the
Yeah, it's
same
gonna
time,
hit
of
you as
course.
well. Yeah.
It hits hard. I've been taken out with that multiple times, man. You do not see it coming. It's just like, whoa. Like, I have 32,000 health and I'm dead now, like in the blink of an eye. So I think that's probably in response to that. Swift trait buffed a little bit. Anything movement related, I'm a big fan of, and they're buffing basically everything movement related. So the movement speed granted is now 7% if it's a gold jewelry piece instead of 6%. So that combined with the well-fitted buff, that's going to be all around some really nice buffs for my mobility focused characters, which is almost all of them.
Yeah.
Move on and talk about some Mundus stones. Again, almost all Mundus stones were touched on. I'm just going to talk about a couple here. Davius, if you want to chime in on one or two, feel free. The Atronach and Serpent Mundus stones, those are the recovery Mundus stones, is now going to give you 310 recovery instead of 238. Giant buff to that to those Mundus stones. And then the Shadow Mundus, instead of giving you 13% critical damage, it's going to give you 11% critical damage and healing, which I think is probably a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's a buff overall.
It's very, very slightly less damage, but you're gaining that critical healing. Again, if you're a Khajiit, it's probably pretty nice.
Yeah. The only other one I would touch on is the ritual. I felt like this is a one that, at least in my opinion, not a whole lot of people use because it's just focused on healing.
Yeah.
And so I was a little bummed to see that nerfed because, I don't know, maybe more people are using that than I thought. That's going from 10% healing done buff to 8%.
Down to 8%. My Magic and Necro healer uses that, so she'll be a little bummed about that, but she has really strong heals, so she'll
Do
probably be all
you
right.
do you think you'll still stick with that, or do you think you'll go with a different one? That's kind of my thing, is that I use this on my main healer as well, and I think it's probably going to cause me to switch things around a bit.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe because we mainly do PvP, and PvP healing in general was nerfed, plus this additional nerf now. just
Those
if I for
things,
that mundus.
yeah, those things combined with the recovery buffs makes me think that I'll probably end up switching over to one of those recovery mundus.
Yeah, I might switch over to recovery. That's a good
Or
idea.
or the shadow now actually is really nice for healers.
Yeah, that might be. I've been thinking of my Magica Templar, he's mainly offensive focused right now, but I've been thinking of turning him into a healer that's like focused on crit heals specifically, like Mother's Sorrow,
Hmm.
and yeah, maybe the Shadow Mundus. And he's a Khajiit too.
Yeah, that works really well.
So that's basically all the patch note stuff we wanted to talk about. It's actually a very, very extensive list of things here. We skipped most of it, and just picked out the stuff that was the most interesting to us. So if you want all the details, definitely check out the PTS patch notes for yourself, or just jump into PTS and start testing stuff out and providing feedback. I'll put a link in the description to the PTS patch notes if you want to see all those details. Um, no emails this week. If you'd like to send us an email, you can email us at scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. That's scrollin with an IN, no G, scrollinpodcast@gmail.com. You can also contact us in game. I'm at Ket Sparrowhawk. Davius is at Star Jumper. Anything else to say before we go? Oh yeah, our guild.
Ooh, that's what I was just about to say. You read my mind.
We have a guild. It's called Stoon's Goons. If you join the guild, you get a free set of Stoon's Favor. We'll craft it for you. Any weights or weapons or whatever you need. We do Goon Nights every Friday night where we say that we go into Imperial City and do a bunch of PvP, but we often just end up doing whatever we feel like in the moment. But it's fun. We have a lot of fun. It's mostly a social guild with some PvP focus, but we do a lot of PvE and a lot of just questing and just really a little bit of everything. We just like to chill out on Discord and just play some Elder Scrolls. And I think that is about an episode, right?
Think that's it.
Okay, thanks for listening. I know it was a long one, so thanks for hanging in there. We'll catch you next time.